Well, hello and welcome to another Sensibility podcast. Today, I am very proud to introduce my friend Dawn Thomas. Now, Dawn is part of our AFA community, which I'm very involved in, and she was the winner of Female Excellence in Advice 2 years ago now. She's longest reigning because of COVID, which is fantastic. And look, I've been wanting to chat with Dawn for some time because I really love seeing her, bubbly personality and brightness on social media. And I just thought she really has a way of attracting people to her and really breaking down those barriers on the whole topic of financial advice and money. And that's sort of one of my intentions with Sensibility and her intention with your podcast, which is Your Money Story. I had to double check that
Yes.
I got that right. And you also, obviously, like myself, a financial planner. Your business is called Wealthwise.
Yes.
So, Dawn, first of all, I want us to get an understanding of how you got into finance and
Uh,
becoming a financial advisor.
Thank you very much for having me on, Amy. I'm very honored to be here.
Mhm.
How I got into financial advice was a bit of an accident because I'm a media studies graduate from Murdoch University all those years ago. I found out upon graduation that it was not as easy to, just get placed in a graduate program or an internship as soon as you graduate. And I had the added complexity of the fact that I was waiting for my permanent residency as well, being from Singapore. And that's how I found myself in the banking space. So within 6 months of entering the bank, there was a financial planning cadetship or a graduate program, and I was hooked. Once I was on it, I think I really had this deep sense of connection of what we could do
Mm.
to really change outcomes for people. So it really matched up. That communication piece that I was passionate about for my media studies degree fit in quite well with the communication piece that was needed in financial advice. So that's how I started, and I'm still here.
It's fantastic. There is quite a misconception about what we do, and I think people go financial advisors and sort of categorize us up there with the accountants and the money nerds and the numbers and just number crunchers, and we're not approachable at all. And one thing you said was you were hooked with, and the fact that you could actually use all those skills at uni to be an advisor. Can you explain to me what really attracted you to advice? What actually hooked you in there?
I think early on, I recognized it as a profession. I knew that you could specialize in it, and I knew that you could really hone your craft. I was very unaware of the sales culture that had really existed and dominated before that. So when I entered it, that was not what I was attracted to. It was the fact that you could really specialize in a topic, and you almost like, the way that you transform that information, you're transforming it into something that's actually palatable, something that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm a good guinea pig, especially being from Singapore and not understanding anything about the retirement system. I realized that I was not that far behind a normal Australian. Normal Australians didn't know as well a lot about the retirement system as well. So as I was learning and I was taking in that information, for me, I was like, let's share this. So maybe it became a sharing session. Maybe it became a bit of the fact that you've got someone in front of you, and you don't want them to feel that they're excluded from the conversation. So like kind of trying to tell them it's not as complex as you think. You
Mm.
can actually take control of certain things, and I'm here as your guide to help you move forward. So
Absolutely. And that's what one of the things we do is actually guide and
mm,
give that information, educate really.
yes.
Again, breaking down the barriers of misconception of what we do is really, we forge that amazing relationship with our clients and then break it down so they understand. And that's one of your many talents is actually helping people understand simply. And, we talked about that on the phone the other days, sometimes that what a complex document, we have to do for compliance being the statement of
Mm,
advice, that's not the be all and end all. The bits and bobs is actually your communication and how you can actually help someone really understand it. Can you give me some examples perhaps of how you've actually changed someone's perception of the advice process through the way you've actually delivered advice?
yeah, so it was interesting. I met a couple who both are lawyers, and he came to see me first, and in the process of of this initial stage of talking to advisors, which some people do. They speak to a number of advisors, and credit on his part, he was actually interviewing me to see whether I'll be a good fit for his wife. So when he was highly analytical, could read a spreadsheet, into finer details. But the issue he had is that he could never get his wife even to come for an appointment like that. So he was trying to find someone that when he finally convinced her to come in, would be able to communicate to that. Because he could see that I was drawing stuff out on my mind map. We have what we call a discovery sheet at Wealthwise, which we put on a whiteboard or we draw on paper, or whichever way you want to do it. But it doesn't change the fact that we're really just going, okay, give me the big picture and then look at the different areas that we can drill down to. So he came back to me and said, okay, I think you're going to be a good fit, so I'm going to bring in my wife. And that's when we had the whiteboard session. He just sat back. He just wanted me to have that meeting with her. And it was just a safe space for her. Like, she's highly intelligent, right? Highly intelligent, top of her game. But there's just something about the complexity of our retirement system that switches people off to engaging with it. So they don't even want to start at the very start. At the end of the meeting, she just said, I feel like an adult now. I feel like I've put in my time. I've put in my time, and I get it. I get the main parts of what I'm supposed to get. So for me, that was like, wow. It was very, very fulfilling for me. And also, like I said, credit to the initial client that came in. He could have just found an advisor that really suited him, and how he was doing, but he was very much like, no, I want my wife to be
involved.
On board. It's very much like how we have informed consent, where we need both parties to say yes, and we need to be able to educate both of them. But you had someone here that went, no, I need my wife on board, so let me find an advisor that can speak to both of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the communication piece comes in. So I think very naturally with financial advice, there's a lot of specific detail. There's a lot of graphs. There's a lot of projections. So for those people who are drawn to it, like we make jokes about engineers and teachers love all these things. So maybe we could try a little harder for the other people that like to learn differently.
Absolutely. Well, one thing you sort of what resonated with me just then is that, she said, I feel like an adult now. A lot of us are intimidated when we don't know something. So we'll shy away from it. So, and there are many, many people that sort of are out there with their heads in the sand when it comes to their finances because it's overcomplicated, especially our retirement system. Our taxation system is also very complicated, and there's so many rules and regulations that it's so too hard. I don't want to know about it. Yet when you actually consider the two key assets that are going to really set us up, the tax-free asset of the home we live in, and the other vehicle, which while we're at accumulation phase is it's a very small amount of tax, but it becomes tax-free, is our super. And that's where we've really got to give a lot of attention and love to, but a lot of people don't even see it as for what it is. So, I think when you have an advisor like yourself, and hopefully people think the same as me, like me, where it's, let's sort of take away all the tech stuff and bring it down to the stuff that's really important. First of all, what their goals are, and take away the whole intimidating concept of the graphs, as you put it, and everything else. Because once I actually get to know you, me, or the other amazing advisors that are out there, that we're just actually wanting to see them exceed and grow, then that makes it so much easier for people to actually want to seek advice. So that's what I recognized in you, why I wanted to get you on the show, and why I wanted to have this conversation, because you sort of just tell it how it is and simplify it. You've got your Instagram page, Advice with Heart.
Yes, that's right.
So you've managed to even bring the concept of being at home and cooking for your family and making that something that's bringing your values into the whole process.
Yes, I mean, I believe that, when you're connecting with an advisor, it's assumed that they have the technical knowledge. I mean, look, we've got FASEA requirements now as well. So the assumption, I think, we all have the technical knowledge. So it's really coming down to, is this going to be a right fit person to person? So for me, I would struggle if someone didn't want to open up, if they wanted to want me to just, I don't know, focus on things that are not their goals, not who they are, I don't think I could do my job effectively as a financial advisor. But for someone to connect to you as well, I'm very aware that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Like we all have people that we will pull towards us, and
100%.
other people, yeah, will have that. So it's the great thing that, I mean, that's an argument for more diversity in our profession, is that you're going to have a lot more different kinds of advisors to serve the different kinds of people that are in our population. So that sort of feeling of going, I'm going to show you who I am. I'm willing to do that, so that if you do find me, and maybe we are in the age of social media where people will look at things. I mean, there's nothing pretentious about it. I just kind of go, is there, if it's something that offends you, if the fact that a financial advisor posts pictures of food offends you, or you think it's unprofessional, probably you're not the person that I should be working with. If you go,
100%.
that is something that, oh, that is, yeah, I like that as well. That's great, because I mean, we have qualifications. I don't need to shove it in anybody's face. We can still have human conversations, and just be on an even playing field with our clients. I mean, that's the way I feel. I feel strongly about equality in every sense, whether it's in my meeting room, whether it's with my kids, whether we're talking about different groups of people in society. That drives me as well as a financial advisor.
So that's so well put, because one of the questions, I guess, and I've written an article on it, on how to find the right advisor for you. You've sort of really hit the nail on the head. If you resonate with that person, you're going to understand them better, understand the message, so you'll be able to understand the advice. And it's really important if someone's sitting in front of you and they're all suited up and you're not that kind of person, and you're already intimidated by all the graphs and the bits, and have just sort of almost like the deer in the headlights going, I have no idea what they're talking about, then that's not the right place for you to be. And if you're sort of going through Instagram and you find someone who's an advisor and cooking, and they're talking about their family, and you've got a family, and you're really creative, and you're just quite open, and you think, I think I'll actually get that message from that person, then that is actually the great opportunity. This is where I think social media has its place in a profession like ours. And so same with the podcast and our websites. People do go and seek personalities that are similar to them. So I think that is a really important thing for people to consider when seeking advice. Apart from, then maybe doing some due diligence, making sure that they're qualified and whatnot. That's also very important, that they're licensed advisors, they're under an AFSL.
Yes.
But the rest of it is absolutely right. People are all about connecting, and that's what I really want people, the message I want to share, and have you on board to share that as well.
Oh, thanks, Amy. I mean, it's just so important that we blow this myth out of the water that financial advisors are one thing. Like, you already started the podcast going, or are you kind of like closely aligned to what accountants do and things like that? It's like, no, we are very much on the people side. So the number of times I've been asked to be like treasurers on a board or committee, I'm like, no, don't put me on there. That's not where my skill set is. Don't lock me behind just looking at numbers and projections, because I mean, that is part of our job, but that's not the part of our job. The part of our job is unlocking who this person is in front of us and making them feel safe enough to really unload any of the concerns and fears or the things that have been holding them back, so that we can actually move forward together.
That is so true. I think that's why a lot of advisors now also use the term coach, because we are guiding them, we are coaching them, we're sort of breaking some of the barriers and the boundaries that's holding them back through the information. But to give them that information, we've got to understand them best. What can you walk us through some of your fact-finding process?
Yeah, so my very first meeting really starts off what we call at Wealthwise the discovery process, or it's basically looking at your short-term, medium-term, and then long-term position. And I'm still quite old school in a way that I use a whiteboard, and I know there are practices out there that will do it on their smart screen and have images, which I think will work well as well. But I just use a whiteboard. My first meeting is really very visual. If we can just capture with the client sort of what their goals are and what their position is, That's my very first meeting. For those who want to bring more information in, I give them that option, because there will be clients who feel that if they're not prepared for the meeting, they feel nervous about it. I mean, it's not a lot of them, but you've got to be able to give that option, so that very busy, if a new person's coming, I'll send them a little attachment to give them an expectation of what the meeting is. I'll tell them the kind of information that I need. But I do put in there, if you can't get all this information, it's okay, because we can always get that later. It's more about, can I identify initially whether I can help,
Yeah.
or whether we both can even work with each other. So that is the very first step, is the discovery process. It just takes a lot of pressure off. Nobody needs to make decisions about anything. It's just really getting to know each other, and building that sense of, maybe to an extent as well, can we work together? So if we've determined that there's value that I can bring, can we work together as well? And then from that point, you can collect all the other information. That's pretty easy to do, but getting the right goals and objectives, and removing the inner barriers, that's the difficult thing to do. Because if you don't find out that inner barrier, but it's going to come up later in your process, and then your advice is not going to be relevant.
I think every advisor's run through that one before.
Correct.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
You get to a point and you go, why isn't this plan working for them? What's going on? And they're not either aligned with the goals or their values. They've come equipped with someone else's ideas.
Yes.
Often that's usually it, or that the husband and wife just not on the same page yet.
Yes.
And our job is to actually really weed that information out.
Yes,
it's quite a skill.
It also, I think, even with the age of informed consent, some of the clients, because I have taken over some clients as well, and some of them have been used to coming in on their own without their partner. And I've got to explain to them that, your partner's not just there to sign paperwork. Like I say, it's not going to cut it anymore. Like, they need to come in. And if they need to have a separate meeting with me on their own, because we approach differently, we're going to do that, but I can't have this silent partner that just signs off on paperwork. Like, I need to know, because if it's joint money.
100%.
Yeah. So I think there was one case where I had to tell a client, sorry, I need to take your wife off the ongoing service if she's not going to participate, because I can't say as an advisor I'm providing advice for her. She hasn't given me anything.
It's so true.
I say, how can I construct something on a conversation I've never had? I've had a conversation with you, but I can't say it reflects her needs. So we've got even more of an emphasis with our code of ethics to ensure that if we are dealing with a couple, I mean, it's okay to see one part of the couple first, but then eventually you're going to need to have both of them in to make sure, like you said, they're on the same page.
100%. Oh, the plan just doesn't work. Depending on obviously how complex the plan is, but it's important. I'm with you on that. So let's just go back, because we've used the tech, term there with informed consent. People would go, what does that mean, and why are you bringing this into the picture here? Do you want to give some background, or would you prefer me to talk about it?
I'm happy for you to.
So basically, we've had lots of changes, and we've had a Royal Commission for those who aren't very privy to what the industry's gone through. And we now have Code of Ethics, and we have FCA, and we sit an exam. In the past, advice, so some businesses have sort of been not as well. They've just been set in an old school way, and it was more sales focused and more KPI driven. Whereas now we're really bringing it to be very holistic. So to ensure that our codes of ethics are all met and measured, we do need to make sure that our clients are absolutely involved in all areas and aspects of the advice process. So when we say the word informed consent, it really does mean that they have a really clear understanding. And that's sort of why I've we've discussed in detail that fact find process. We have to fully understand the client's needs, goals, and objectives. But once we've created the plan, we've got to ensure that they understand what that plan entails, what products are going to be involved, costs and whatnot. So when you're getting someone to sign something, before they sign, we really need to be satisfied that they have a full understanding of what they're going forward with. I think that's probably the best way. saying that?
Yes, and just to extend on that as well, with informed consent, they basically have the onus put on the advisor to assess financial literacy of the client in front of you as well.
Yes.
So if you feel that there needs to be more building of the literacy level, you've got to do it. So you can't just say client understands. You've almost got to kind of prove how you've done that, or like they say, you got to relate back, what have they told you that they understand, how did you know that they actually understood why they're moving forward. So it's almost like, yeah, you're trying to account for the fact of how you communicate as well, or how you've made an assessment of where someone's at, and then that sort of leads to being able to determine if they can give informed consent. So
It's
it's like,
so true. It's
it's almost
quite
like a
complex.
formula.
It
Yeah.
is a formula. I've changed the way I've done things with going forward. I do my meetings on Zoom and they do get recorded. So that the client, if I'm being audited, the auditor can actually see the interaction between me and my client as well.
Such a good idea.
Yeah, that's just one of the things that I'm doing, because I think it is very difficult. How do you prove that the client has a full understanding? So have you ever been in a situation where you've kind of gone through the process and gone, I don't think they're getting it?
Yeah, I actually had it has happened where, especially if you're dealing with a lot of retirees and some are getting older. And I was wondering about whether our file notes can actually hold up in court, because I write file notes, but if a client disputes what was said during that meeting and it's only a client and advisor, I wonder whether what I've written will be relevant. So even though I've put my recollection of what's happened, and that's what advisors have to do, and we do it in a as quickly as we can after the meeting. But I'm not sure if that's really going to be able to prove that there is been informed consent, like how you've recorded it, then someone can look at it maybe quite neutrally and go, okay, what was actually said? Because I have noticed that some clients, when they're getting older, their memory is also being impacted, but it's also a sensitive topic, because that might not be a conversation that's happened between husband and wife. If someone's telling you and recollecting something that's quite different, or forgotten they've even seen you, that for me is a bit concerning when you're dealing with aging clients.
Yeah.
So I don't have a solution for it right now, but the Zoom idea is good. But we do see some of them in person because they're older as well.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also, after every meeting, I email them my notes.
Yes.
So I actually go, this is a file note from our meeting. So it's like a meeting minutes.
Yeah.
So that's another way I record, because I'm terrible at, if I don't communicate with the client, I'll get distracted and go, oh, this child needs something, or I'm getting a glass of water, and then an email comes in and hang on a minute, it's all gone. So as soon as that meeting's done, I send them an email saying, thank you for your time. And this is the stuff that we've talked about. If there's anything that I've missed or anything you don't understand, come back to me.
Yeah, perfect.
Then I've covered myself.
Yes. I mean, if you've got listeners who are non-advisors, I mean, they might not understand, I guess, how much pressure we're under from a compliance point of view. We don't try and make it our client's problem, but it really is the contingency of, oh, have we done this in case that happens? And that's what's running in the background past the meeting. So we try not to make it a terrible experience for the client with our compliance issues, but there is a lot happening in the background to just ensure that we are adhering to what is being asked of us. And sometimes what's being asked of us is also a bit unclear from compliance point. So we might go overkill. We might just do more than what's required. So
yeah, we're dealing with more than just one governing body at the moment.
Yes.
That's the long and short of it. And I think having this conversation is not a bad thing, because it's really looking under the hood of what we do as advisors. This part of it is as important as us going through, looking over at my other screen here, going through the forecasts and calculating, whether their super funds performing as best they should to ensure that their long-term objectives are being met. All of that is the tech stuff. That's so important. But that to me is easy to do once we unlock what the goals are, what the important stuff is, the real nitty-gritty things you just spoke about earlier. That's where the skill lies. And then delivering that on the other end
Yes.
is also the other skill,
Yes.
making sure they really get it, because that's where the success lies. And someone's involved and, excited to actually get stuck in and really take control of their financial future.
Yeah, I mean, there was a circumstance where one of my new clients freaked out because she got the statement of advice. And what usually I'm the one that emails it through, and I kind of write there, if you can go through it, because some people like getting it beforehand, but you don't have to. I kind of write you kind of take it the way you want to. And my amazing assistant, she sent it through because she was like, no, I'll send it through. But of course, I didn't actually kind of explain to her the kind of content I usually put in the email. So then the client was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready for this meeting tomorrow. No, I think I'm gonna need." She starts freaking out. So I just said to her, "No, nobody is meant to understand that document." I said probably 5% of people do understand that, but nobody's meant to understand a statement of advice from start to finish. Like, as much as what ASIC aspire us, it's very confusing because they say it should be simple to understand, but yet there's a lot of compliance requirements. So in that process as well, I think it's just letting the clients know that we are going to have to rely on a document that has a lot of detail in there, but it doesn't take back from the fact that it's connected to your goals and your outcomes. And when we had the meeting the next day, she got it, and she's like, "Oh," she said my dad would feel so proud. He'll be so surprised with what I'm doing at the moment, because her dad had already passed on. She said she was never known as somebody who was good with her money, but it's just, I think that shows what financial advisors do. We kind of take a lot of content, and then we kind of go, okay, what's the most important thing you need to know, and go through those points, and then really drill down on those things, and just also knowing not to overload them with too much information, um, because there is a lot of information there. So can we focus on what's really important? Can we understand that you're giving us consent because you understand what's there as well? Do you understand the alternative strategies that we discounted? Because we didn't just come up with this. From what you've told us, we've come to this conclusion, and we've excluded a lot of other things as well. So yeah, I think that was an important, that's in the other part of it, that we finally come up with our stuff and we deliver it to our clients. Are they going to get the the brilliance that's behind the madness?
That's so well put. Are they going to get the brilliance that's behind the madness? Because there is some magic in what we do. I believe at the end of the day, we've got the ability to put it out there and go, this is your future.
Yeah.
If you just follow the steps, get it, and then we can make it happen. And then, because sometimes people don't realize that they actually could, pay off their mortgage or retire as more comfortably. They sort of freak out at the concept, especially the younger clients that are at that accumulation phase, to think, oh my God, I need $1 million at retirement, but not really put it in perspective of the time frame, how compounding interest works, how their investments work, how contributions can be. You've got different options to contribute to make that happen along the way, that it's not just what you're putting in now, it's what you do later and how we can strategize. And all of a sudden it just opens up the mind, and everything is achievable all of a sudden. And that's the magic. That's where I go, there's the magic. It can be done. It's possible. Surprise.
And also Productivity Commission did an inquiry into superannuation in 2018. And our system is actually designed around passive participation. That's like, so the government's trying their hardest with doing all these things to make it as easy as possible for someone who doesn't actually want to participate, and part of it is that if just people take a few steps forward on their own and increase their level of participation, our overall system is actually going to work better for everyone involved, because
100%.
It's now been set up as a default position by far, and superannuation was supposed to give everyone a safe retirement, because it's on a level that is additional to age pension and things like that. But what's happened is that there are unequal outcomes to superannuation. You know, the people who use superannuation best are considered the ones who are affluent. Probably they don't need as much help in retirement, because they're preserving their funds. They're making the most of their money work. That's why they're using that strategy. They've recognized that why would you house your money for retirement in a place that's going to be paying more tax, if it's money for
100%.
retirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you've got the passive participants who are unaware of it, the people that stand to gain the most of their money working harder for them, don't even know, they haven't even started that conversation yet. I suppose if you don't know what you're missing out, you probably just don't know. And I think that's what financial advisors do is we're just trying to open that conversation, because I think it's really hard. Once you take that first step forward, it's hard to just pretend that you don't know anymore.
It's so true. I know. And look, as I said earlier, there's, it's a fantastic tax effective vehicle to really ensure that you're going to be financially comfortable later on in life. But I think we've got to, and I know that you've kind of very passionate, so you probably ensure that people are engaged and see it as a positive and even fun thing. That's what I'm trying to do as well, is to make it, it's actually really cool. It's fun. I love watching money grow. Investing is exciting for me. It's about how do we get more people to be excited about their super when people go, I don't even know how much I've got.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? That could be one of the biggest assets you'll ever own.
Yeah.
It could make your life so different.
No, exactly. I mean, it's supposed to be. I mean, I came across this article from Super Guru, which is from the Australian Superannuation Funds, Association of Super Funds of Australia, ASFA, and they had said that the biggest asset that a 15 to 24-year-old could have is actually their super, but they're unaware
100%.
because they're so busy like trying to save for their first car or things like that in their savings account. But little do they know their super has already surpassed what they've actually saved, but they're willing to not have any input in that money. And if you think about how hard they save to just get like their first car, their first holidays, and scraping money away, and they've already got a pot of money that's there ready to be, just make a few decisions. So I think it's really something we have to change. And I think the thing about financial advisors is that we also understand not everyone's our client, but like you're doing a podcast purely out of your passion. Like we are finding other ways to help with the literacy piece in the community. So even if someone's not our client, we do understand that we can't actually service the community as a whole, maybe.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get other content there to maybe help the conversation.
Yeah. And look, I believe, and like you said, there's going to be clients that aren't right for you and there's going to be clients that aren't right for me. But it's important to get this information out. I know that there's a lot of people looking at the stuff that I put on my website that they can go away and do themselves. And that's absolutely fine. That's what it's there for. It's like, get your head around it, use it, run with it. It's okay if you don't call me and I don't become your advisor. But when the time is right, know that there's people out there like yourself, like me, that actually are prepared to sit down and work out some of your goals and help you achieve them. And the fact is that if you're getting started, that's great. You've got to start somewhere. That's my big belief is, financial literacy is something that we're really lacking. And it's been a buzzword for many years, but there really needs to be more of it out there. And I think, what you're doing is fantastic. And more of us need to be doing it. We really do need to start just having these conversations. And the challenge is though, both of us are taking an hour out of our day to do that. And our days are very full. You've got kids, I've got kids, we've got businesses that we've got to try and manage, and we've got other things that are going on in our lives. But this is, as you said, a passion project. So speaking of passion projects, let's now talk about your podcast.
Yes. So my podcast is called Your Money Story. And, it's not so much about money where you're going to get 20 tips on what to do with investing or things like that. It's more about people's journeys, to be able to believe in themselves or, equalize and empower disparity where they are as well. to get them to the point of where they are at the moment. Because we know money is not just money. It's not an even playing field. You've got a lot of different journeys, and I also want to just make women a lot more visible. I think we're so underrepresented just generally as well, so in my space, I just want to feature tons of women, but also other marginalized groups as well. I think that's the thing about this podcast, is that um, there's so many great people that I've had conversations with. I just want that conversation to become a wider conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and just get it out there, and also feature just a whole lot of different people. So that's why it's a passion project, because I think I'm very much an advocate of our profession, and I want to advocate for the people that are within it, because maybe some people might go, why do you interview so many financial advisors? isn't there isn't there like a um competition and stuff like that? And it's like, no,
No.
there's none of that. My view is that we are a profession. I want everyone to realize that. My view is that we have a lot of people that are in here that are amazing and doing amazing things. So let's celebrate that, because that lifts our profession as a whole. But also there are stories of, I just did an interview last week of someone from the LGBTQ community who found their space to flourish in a career. But that took a journey, like you're not going to just end up in the first workplace and then be celebrated for who you are. So I think it's just a celebration of stories, Amy, if I can put it down that way. It is linked to value, but it's also linked to you trying to equalize your position. I'm really big on that. If
Mm-hmm.
there's ways, we had Chloe Liao on, who was talking about how her budgeting helped her avoid being bullied at the workplace, and for probably, if you think about Generation Y women, they're going through where they are right now. Possibly if they're studying in their careers, there could be power disparity where they are, if especially they're employee. But she set up a strong budgeting system where if she needed to leave a job because it's not aligned to her values, she could, so no one had that power being held over her. And I think, how many of us are having that conversation with young women
That's
about,
so weird, because I had that very conversation with a woman yesterday.
yeah, no, but it opened my eyes when I spoke to her, and I just, yes, why do we have to be put in that position where we're accepting less, accepting bullying, accepting different things? We know the conversations happening at the moment about women's safety in environments. Why would we have to stay in those environments? And because people stay because they need the money.
Yes.
And someone like that just saying she's so passionate, she does community work, but she's used money to empower herself. And I was blown away, Amy. I was like,
It's
oh,
beautiful.
yeah, it's beautiful. And I just went, that message just needs to go out to more young women, or more young men. Just I'm learning from it as well, and I'm in awe. So yeah.
That's
Sorry,
fantastic.
yeah.
No, because this is the thing. I mean, that's what storytelling is all about, really. It's spreading a message, and by that little story, it could actually change someone else's life, and
Yes.
it becomes a bigger story and more important to somebody else. So, I don't think anything's insignificant when it comes to how we can actually empower somebody. And what you're doing and the storytelling it'll just grow from there. Speaking of which, you're
Yeah.
now also, because I'm state chair of New South Wales with AFA Inspire, speaking of empowering women, you've just become national chair. So,
Yes.
yay!
Thanks, Amy. I'm honestly very, very humbled to be asked, because I didn't think that would be somewhere I would land up, because I feel like I'm a little bit of a on the outside, just doing my own weird thing, and I think it's testament to AFA that they're looking for different sorts of people to have different sorts of ideas. So even someone weird like me, it's
not weird. I think we all have a bit of flavor of weird. It's all good.
yeah, I know.
That's what makes it fun. That's what brings the right people to, to be attracted to taking you on as their advisor, or me on as their advisor, or so on. Is that we have our own, own way, our own little bit of weird, or a bit of creativity, or a bit of
yes.
whatever ingredient you want to throw in there. And
Yes.
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. And how it was positioned to me by AFA is it look, we think that it's very much in line with what you want to achieve personally as well, for women in the community and things like that. And when I thought about it, it was. I mean, it's definitely an honor to work with such amazing women like yourself, for us just to continue to send that message that we have amazing female financial advisors. We should have more female advisors. We should just lift and celebrate, because we found our safe space and our space where we're celebrated, but not everyone's in that position. I don't want someone to leave because they haven't been appreciated where they are, or they think that this, profession is one thing. Like your podcast is demonstrating that our profession has the warm and fuzzy bits and the people bits, and I think it's going to really attract people. So I think once that was something that clicked, that connected, and that's something that I get to play a part of by being this role. It felt right, and getting to work with all of you, Amy. I think it'll be a good ride.
Yeah, it felt right for me when I was asked to, first of all, become part of the community, become part of a committee. So I'll just quickly explain what AFA is the Association of Financial Advisors, but we have a community of practices, and Inspire is one of those community of practices where it's not exclusive to women, but it's a community where women can really lift each other up, and we have a lot of more relatable topics to women, and we celebrate women in finance. So they don't have to be financial advisors, but they're in that sort of the industry. And I actually invite people outside of the industry to come along to our events, just to get an insight about who we are as a community and a profession. But it's also, I think, the key thing, what we're all trying to achieve is helping others, help women really flourish. And if we can do that with their finances, but also with their careers, then it's a win-win. And that's why I'm in it. I love being part of the community. I'm looking forward to, setting out some amazing events and webinars, and I'll be sharing that on my social media channels as they come about. And no doubt you'll be getting involved with that as well.
Yes.
But I also encourage, as I said, other women outside of the industry to participate, come and have a look, because it's not exclusive to, it's part of the AFA, yes, but it's not exclusive to just people in finance. I think it's really good if others can actually see what we're doing and get involved.
And I think that's where you find the synergies as well. You can have that that like-mindedness with someone in a different profession that really suits the other piece of the puzzle, because in a way, as advisors, we're like project managers as well. We need to because we look at the big picture, we are trying to tie in what the accountant does, what the solicitor does, or all those things. And it's nice to find other people that are, kind of like-minded and going, this is the way I run my client. This is what's important for me as well. And I think that community can help that. But also, for me personally as an advisor, Amy, when I attended my first Inspire event in 2018, and if I think about at that point, I had been in the financial planning industry for over 10 years. It's the first time I had ever seen women celebrated. And I just went, what? This exists where? And then I was like, oh, wow, because Lee Shoda was brought over for the roadshow with 3 other of the, I think, finalists from the Female Excellence in Advice Awards. And I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't know it was possible. And for me, that was role modeling. That showed me where I wanted to be. That showed me community. And it's just funny it took that long for me to realize that was there. So for me, that the association I have with Inspire is always that thing of warmth and belonging. And I found that as a woman attending that took that long. So
yeah, that word warmth is so true. That's how I felt when I first event I went to, because I was self-employed on my own. I didn't really have a team behind me. It's quite isolating. And a colleague invited me, and I turned up, and then I was welcomed and sat down with someone. Next thing, I'm having a laugh, and it was just I remember it was quite a long time ago now. It was back in 2014, I think, 13, 14. Maybe it was 13, actually. It was quite a while ago. And, I was still at that startup stage of my business. I remember going, these are also amazing, successful women. I'm like,
yeah.
That imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But when you get to know everyone, everyone's feeling the same way.
Yeah.
And, I think because, it is an industry where we're the minority. There's only about 20% of us
Yes.
being represented in finance overall. That's
Yeah.
including in the banks and everything. It's a small amount.
Yeah.
I remember walking into an event, a PD day, and being the only woman in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's nice to see it change, and it's nice to see this inclusivity. But I know we've kind of digressed about where you're going and whatnot, but it's good to talk about this because, as I said, we're really today lifting the lid on what our industry is about.
Yes.
And I think if people really are prepared to be open to seeing what we do, they might be open to actually coming and seeing an advisor and actually making the right decisions for their finances.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you a really cheesy question, but I'm curious. If you could go back to your former self and give her one incredible piece of advice, what would that be?
I think just own who you are. I think that's something I've eased into in my 30s. I'll be leaving the 30s soon, but yeah, in my 30s.
I should have been specific when I say former self. You're young. You're say 6-year-old.
Almost, I just that I'm enough, So I think we imposter syndrome is one level that I think a lot of women have, but I think further to that as well, I think in a lot of communities, women are valued less, and you need to be able to shut off all the noise around that. I've got the complicated layer that I'm from an Asian background, and there's like almost like a pecking order, or there's a system of who's valued more. And I always had my dad telling me that I had value, but it took a while for me to believe it myself. So I would say believe. I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You got me excited. Sorry.
Good.
I hope it will pass. I'm sorry, Amy.
It's okay.
I had a cold last week. I think it's just the remnants of. I'm not trying to cough. Maybe I'll mute it while I'm coughing.
That's okay. It's fine. These things happen. It gives you more time to think about, the answer. And I love, while you're coughing, I'll just recap. You sort of made an important thing about sort of there's a pecking order and value of where people are in certain cultures. And that's another thing, another, I guess, dimension that women are breaking through those barriers, because there is so many different cultures out there that have women placed in different spaces, in different sort of value points. And, coming into a Western society where we're fighting for equality, be it in the workplace or with our pay, or just being recognized that the merit that we've provided, the work that we've done, there's merit in it as equal to the same, work that our peers have done potentially. But the other issues, the subconscious stuff that really can play with us, is just that how we've been raised, or the culture and the stories from the past that have affected us. Even if it's not, your parents haven't intended on that, it's there. Our television shows, the roles that women play in the household, and how 80% of our household duties are done by women, still unpaid, these kind of things. They really do actually have and play havoc on our thought, the way we actually present ourselves, and have that inner belief.
Yes.
And that imposter syndrome is just something that I think
it's just another layer. It's just another wonderful layer that women have to deal with. But it was just a strange thing, because I think we've been taught to please from young, taught not to speak up when something is wrong. It's just very troubling, the way women are raised in the environment. When they're girls, you learn to be polite in situations where they're unsafe situations, but you almost quieten down the warning bells internally, because you're supposed to be polite, you're supposed to not rock the boat, things like that. And it's this journey I think a lot of us have had that we're into adult life, where we realize that we don't need to care about a lot of these things. You get to a point where you feel totally at ease with who you are, even though imposter syndrome is still there, but you feel at ease with who you are. You kind of set your own rules within the community that you're in. Even for me being raised, I could see women fighting women. And there is this narrative out there that that's what women do, and women don't do that. They've been pitted against each other. So for me, that's hard sometimes when I'm in an environment and I honestly want equality for many groups of people. To find sometimes women who are still within that frame of mind where they will side with maybe someone that's more powerful and male than stand up for a fellow female.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is something I struggle with, because I'm like, surely we're stronger together if we all lift each other up. And I think that's what Inspire is. But I think as a
Yes.
little girl growing up and seeing that, you're very confused. You're very
Yes.
confused that surely those people that are that are walking the same path that you have, that have been valued less, that have been put in situations where it's not fair on them, surely that they would have some empathy for you. But no, it almost becomes like you're perpetuating it for the next generation, because that's all you know.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot that can be done about that, maybe, uh, besides removing yourself from the environment. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I have felt is I've come to Australia. I have a family with my husband, and we always just surround ourselves by people that are going to be positive and lift us, and that relates back to the communities in financial advice as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ever feeling that you're isolated, or you're not feeling it in your physical environment, there are people like Amy around. There are heaps of people around in your community that are willing to just give you that warmth and not judge and just lift you up. Like, we're not going to see you as competition.
No.
We're gonna celebrate you. We could be like, yes.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that's what we are as a community. That's what we are as a profession. And that's what we are for our clients. I'm like a biggest cheerleader for my clients. And I know you would be too. It's like I've had those clients that have just put it off and put it off and put it off because they didn't feel worth it. It didn't maybe think I have enough money, or I'm not ready for some reason, similar to the hang-ups and issues that you've just expressed. Because we've got these preconceived ideas. So they're barriers that we see in our careers, but they're barriers we see over our finances as well.
Yes.
And it's a matter of going, okay, I am enough and I am worth investing in.
Yes.
I'm worth investing in my future through my education, through my work, through my finances, through my fitness, through my health, through my friends. We've got to start looking at it like money's got to be on the wellness wheel. I'm a big believer in that. And I'm a big believer in saying, you know what, I need to start somewhere. It's okay for me to go, I don't know, can you help me? That's really important. So, and that I think what you've just sort of said can be brought across in all areas of what we're talking about, our industry, our community, and finance. I mean, at getting advice. So if you're not a financial advisor and you're listening to this, the relevance to what we're talking about is the same. You can go and seek advice. You can go and ask for help. You can go and invest in yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't feel like you're ready, you probably are. You just got a lot of noise going on.
Yes. Take that first step, because you will find safe spaces.
Yes.
So they are out there. And we're going to celebrate that. That's what you're doing, Amy.
Yeah. I like to see people kicking goals. I mean, there's sometimes people really come to you in situations, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where, they can't see the forest among the trees, so to speak. They're just overwhelmed by so much, and they just think that they're falling back, going backwards fast, maybe lots of debt or whatever. But we're skilled enough to actually be able to strategize and see that there's a way out. Because when you're in the thick of it, you can't see the way out. And that goes for a lot of parts of our life, in life. I feel, and we can be the counselors and the coaches and the advisors and the friend.
I think we are also very real with the choices that people have. I think it's not that you have a inability to choose. You're not in a position where you can't choose. It's just that, okay, what happens if you do things differently? What's the consequence? I think a big part of our job is kind of going, okay, if you stay this way and you choose not to care, this is going to be the outcome. But if you choose this, and then there could be a different outcome. So it's very much going with whatever you're doing, rather than it being kind of random. We can give a little bit of a sense of, is that actually taking you towards where you want to go? Or if you're not willing to make the change now, how is it going to impact where you want to be in the future?
100%. It's taking us back to that fact find appointment. It's like if until you actually know where you are, and we really find that out through the fact finding process.
Yes.
We all have to do it. We do need to know. We do need to understand your financial position as well as your goals and objectives. So once we've got that, it's like then we can create the map.
Yeah.
But you can't go and create a map to a destination when you don't know exactly where you are to start with.
Yep.
So that's sort of that's the importance of that process, and then we can then give that guidance, and that's the stuff that I love to do, and I'm sure you do too.
Yes, I think I mean, if your listeners again are unfamiliar about a different aspect of our job, I just came back from regional WA, and I helped the client through a very difficult Centrelink application, and she just said, "Don't. What about the people who don't have the help? Because you're just doing it with me." And this is like probably the fourth form that's been given to her by Centrelink about something that was not really even, just because, for example, someone just sets up a trust in your name and there's nothing in there, that can be an issue from Centrelink purposes.
Oh yeah.
Because they want to see, and even you can't just say, "Oh, I don't know anything." Centrelink want to know because you could be hiding assets.
Yeah.
And for this client, it was not about strategy. It was none of that, because we had done all the advice for that. Now it's being her advocate to get this stuff settled with Centrelink. And Lily, who's my assistant, is amazing. She's been on the phone with Centrelink. She's been briefing me about what I need to tell, and it's like there's a whole there's like teamwork there. I think that's the thing. Like we're trying to fight for a good outcome for you. So
Yes.
The advice is one thing, is that in any scenario you're finding yourself where you're difficult, whether it's Centrelink, whether your spouse has passed away, whether someone, like you said, older bases, if they're getting cancer and they're having to help with claims processes, it's not just this one event. I think that's the thing about financial planning. We're coming in at different life events, whatever that might be, whether that's the good news or that's the bad news, but that guidance doesn't change. We're there to be your advocate, and we're there to try and make things a little bit easier in a difficult situation.
That's so true. And that's actually a great point to take home, is that that's what we do. We try and make it easier.
Yeah.
What is complex, what is difficult, is we are trying to actually make it so easy that it's easy to execute so that you can actually be successful. We could keep talking. We've been going for an hour, so I'm going to wrap this up. And I want to thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm just going to recap that you've got a podcast as well called Your Money Story.
Yes.
So please don't hesitate to check that out. I'll be putting the link there in the show notes. And also, if they want to contact you, they can contact you through the Wealthwise website.
Yes, on LinkedIn,
or on social,
Instagram.
LinkedIn.
I'm on Twitter now. I don't really know how to use it, but if you're on there, I'm sure I'll find out if you send a message. And I'm also doing some research work as well into Gen Zs and superannuation engagement. So I might be making a call out for 15 to 24-year-olds in the coming months to find out how they have made decisions around superannuation. So
I'd be fascinated by that information.
Yes. I would. So if any of you have children that you want to give up for this.
You can have a couple of mine.
Correct. Yes. So that if I can make a cheeky call out with that, I'll just position it there. I might just need your children to give us some insight on what they've done with their superannuation.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I had such a lovely session with you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm just